This is Glambition Radio, episode number 244, with negotiating expert Alexandra Carter.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Glambition Radio.
Welcome to Glambition Radio. I am your host, Allie Brown. I'm an entrepreneur, mentor, investor, and founder of The Trust, the modern premier network for 7- and 8-figure women leaders. I love thinking big, doing different, and exploring ideas that disrupt the status quo, especially when it comes to women, because we are creating the new models for leadership, business success, making money, and changing the world. And hey, we're doing it with style. So let's go. Wow, I just have to say thank you for all the feedback I have received from the last 2 episodes, which are both solos, and we're covering kind of, the theme really is staying grounded and strong right now with everything happening around us. And even though, listen, the next week or 2 is going to be insane. Instead of listening to the outside voices, tuning back into yourself and your strength and your power and what you can accomplish this year. Because I'm telling you, it may not feel that way right now, but when you tune in to those higher frequencies, that right place that you need to be, that's where you make your decisions from. That is where you set your intentions for the year. It's going to be amazing. So go back and listen to those. They were 242 and 243. And in the second one, I also answered many of your questions that came in. So if you did submit a question, there's a good chance I answered it on that show. Would love to know what you think. Again, my happy place is Instagram. So drop me a note there. Would love to hear from you. Okay. I'm so excited our guest today because, we're getting to some practical stuff. And, I have many different types of guests on the show that I think require different types of interviews. Sometimes the discussion is more on someone's story. Other times when someone comes in and I see something like this, that they have a book called Ask for More, 10 Questions to Negotiate Anything. I'm like, can we just go there? Alex is a clinical professor of law and director of the Mediation Clinic at Columbia Law School. Now, this woman's gone in and trained groups and individuals at organizations like the United Nations, Fortune 100 companies, U.S. government. By the way, they could probably use you again right now, Alex. Okay. Foreign governments, not-for-profit organizations, universities, private law firms. She is the real deal. And you'll hear her share. I found this just so humorous when I kind of figured it out. So many people, when they hire her, are so delighted to have not only a woman in there working with them, but someone who is not just bringing techniques from military hostage situations. You have a lot of those guys go out and teach negotiating, but she comes from kind of a different perspective, a little bit more holistic, I would say. And you're going to get some great tips today that you can put to use right away. You're going to love this. Shout out to 2 reviews my team pulled for me from Apple Podcasts. Thank you. And by the way, if you drop one, there's a good chance I'll be reading your review. And we're doing another special giveaway coming up this spring. You will be automatically qualified, even if you do the review now, if you have some time. So don't wait just because of that. Please, it's helping new people find the show. We so appreciate it, especially on Apple Podcasts, because it's really helping more people discover Glambition Radio. The first is from, I think this is their handle. It's 9:14 p.m. from Canada. She writes, I love every episode because regardless of the topic or conversation, I feel like I'm sitting in the room with Allie and her guests. During the past 9 months, I needed to grab onto hope, resilience, and somehow embrace the mess. Not many people see business as a holistic experience like I do, but Allie certainly talks my talk. Thank you for shining your light, Allie. You are needed in the world. And the next is also from Canada, Shelley Warren. We need to hear more women's voices, and Allie ensures that happens. Always inspiring to hear what women are up to in the world so we can support them. Love your solo episodes too. Keep them coming. Thank you so much for taking the time. And one quick reminder that our show is always sponsored by The Trust. It is the new modern network for 7- and 8-figure women entrepreneurs. Now, I am hosting another informational call coming up on Wednesday, February 3rd. This is a private call where you do have to apply to attend. And I'll be spending some time with you, walking you through all the details. What is the trust? Why did I decide to create it? What is happening this year in 2021? Who are we bringing in? Where are we going? What are we doing? And you can see if it would be a great fit for your goals this year. I'm telling you, the energies are powerful. Why not tap into a new, fresh circle of amazing businesswomen who think at a different level? And God willing, we are meeting in Miami in March, come hell or high water. All right. If I'm legally allowed to have this meeting, we're going to be there. And Kara Golden is our special guest advisor. She created Hint Water, which is now a $150 million company. She is an extraordinary businesswoman. Honored to call her a close friend of mine. And I am bringing her into Miami, though, to spend the morning with us and really go deep. This is not a typical keynote. We bring in people to spend time with us who we really engage with, ask questions, get answers. And that is happening in March 2nd and the 3rd is our meeting in Miami. But if you want to join me for that special call to tell you more, and you can see what you think and if this would be a good fit for you this year, the call is Wednesday, February 3rd. And the link to learn more and apply to join us for the call is jointhetrust.org/private invitation. Jointhetrust.org/private invitation. Now let's do some negotiating with Alexandra Carter. Alex, where are you right now?
Allie, I'm in Maplewood, New Jersey, which is about 40 minutes outside of New York City.
And tell me what life is like for you right now. I read in your bio that you have a daughter.
I do. I have a daughter. She's almost 10 and almost my height. So I'm confronting every day the possibility that my daughter is going to surpass me in many ways.
Are you short or is she really tall? Or neither?
I'm both. So I'm 5'2" and my husband is 6'4". So it was kind of like reaching into the grab bag when you have a child, you're not really sure if you're going to end up with a jockey or like, a women's volleyball player.
Uh-huh.
And so she's taking after dad in the height department.
Oh my gosh. How cute. How cute. And this has been an interesting year, I'm sure, for family life, because you mentioned you used to travel a lot.
I did. So, Allie, before the pandemic, I would be, I'm a full-time professor at Columbia Law School, and I would be teaching full-time Monday through Thursday. And then almost every Thursday night, I would be flying out to a different client. And I would be somewhere in the country or even, Europe. And then I would fly back home and get ready to do it all again. And so all of a sudden, I'm doing everything I'm used to doing in a totally different way.
Yeah. It's been, there is the silver linings to it for sure. And, I know being around, I have 7-year-old twins.
Oh,
and we pulled them out of school too. It's a whole other show, but we decided it was just getting crazy. And are they in? Are they out? Are they doing this? Are they that? And so we're like, let's do this. And it's been messy, but fun. It's been messy, but an amazing year at the same time. And it's great for them to see us living out loud and being who we are at home. So I have a question. So when you were flying around for clients, give us kind of a snapshot of your career and how you came to decide that the negotiating topic was still such a hot topic that you wanted to claim for this book.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna tell you this story. The early part of my career, I was that young woman who was an unbelievable negotiator for other people, for colleagues, for people I was supervising, for my company, for my family or friends. And I struggled to turn those skills back on myself until the moment I first negotiated for my salary. And I received advice that changed my whole life. I went in. I had my power suit on. I was totally nervous. And the offer came in above what I expected. So I had just enough on the ball to kind of keep my face neutral and say, thanks so much. I'm going to run these numbers. I'll get back to you. And I called a senior woman in my field. I wasn't sure what to do. And I said, they came in. It's a great offer. Should I just take it? And she said, I'm going to tell you what to do, Alex. You're going to get back in there and you're going to ask for more. because when you teach someone how to value you, you teach him how to value all of us. And so if you're not going to go in there and do it for yourself, I want you to go in there and do it for the woman who's coming after you. Do it for the sisterhood.
And how did you feel about that advice? Were you like, it was a good offer, it was pretty good.
You really want to know what I thought about that advice? I thought, oh shit.
Yeah.
Okay, now I have to negotiate for myself in every scenario because I'm really service-minded. What gets me out of bed in the morning, what drives my own ambition is knowing that the more I claim my seat at the table, that seat comes with a microphone that I can use to amplify other women. And so when I reframed asking for more as not selfish, but an act of service that would allow me to create more seats around the table for other women, I knew that from then on, I was going to self-advocate and I was going to spend my life teaching women to do the same.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. We are more motivated, if you will, often when there's others at stake. Isn't that true?
It is. I think it's a combination of, perhaps women being more relational, thinking about nurturing all of those relationships in our lives. But also, it's a bit of still institutional sexism out there in the workplace that do you know that when women advocate for themselves, if companies or bosses hear too much I want, I demand, I this, I that, we run up against this stereotype, right? That we're too aggressive and we're not a team player somehow when it's perfectly acceptable for the men to be doing the same. But what I found and what I teach is that when we balance the I, we don't erase the I. I'm still very clear on what I need. But when I also tie it to something that's going to benefit other people, other women, my department, my company, our customers, that is when my asks are the most successful. And so, threading that needle or walking that tightrope is something that a lot of women are out there doing every day.
Yeah. It kind of unlocks that little next layer of courage.
It does. It does, right? Because when you imagine the people looking to you, it does give you that courage to go on. And Allie, if I can tell a personal story here, I needed a major shot of that courage, if I'm being candid, to publish a book. For years, I was going into clients and I had a large client list totally by word of mouth. You'll be amused to know this. My first ever public speaking gig I got because my daughter was 18 months and she was playing, quote unquote, with a little boy whose dad worked at a major company. And the dad one day said, "What do you do?" And I said, "I'm a negotiation professor." And he booked me for a gig at his company. Wow. And I blew it out the box. And from there, everybody started calling. And at the end of all of those talks, people would say to me, "Alex, this was incredible. I loved it. Where can I read more to deepen my study?" And you know what I would have to do? I'd have to recommend a negotiation book that was written by a guy because they're all written by men virtually and men who are 20 years older than I am. And so I had more than a moment when I knew I was going to write a book that I thought, will people buy a negotiation book from someone who looks like me? And then I had that moment where I thought, I'm doing it for the sisterhood. I'm going to get out there and show that negotiation expertise can come from a woman.
Yeah. Is there anything different that you talk about or recommend that hasn't been out there before? Is there anything you do now that's controversial, or help us kind of get a feel for your flavor of what you teach in the book, Ask for More?
Absolutely. There's a lot that's different. And the first thing, Allie, that's different is how I think about and teach about negotiation itself. So I'm wondering if you or how many of the women listening, learned this message that negotiation is a back and forth, over numbers to get to an agreement. So it's once a year for that performance review. Or if you're an entrepreneur, it's the lead up right before you sign a deal with your client. And that's not it at all. Negotiation is simply steering. It's steering relationships. It's every conversation you have, not just the money conversations. It's every conversation where you are teaching someone how to value you, how to think about you and your expertise. And what happens when you approach every conversation like a negotiation, when you do have the money conversations, you do so much better because it's not just about numbers, it's about messages. And if you don't get the messages right, you're never going to get the numbers you want. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that the approach I teach is not about coming into a room and saying, I have all the answers. It's about coming in and asking the best questions. And when you ask the best questions, that's when you're going to figure out what your best possibilities are for a deal. And that's what everybody should be doing when they first walk in the room.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. So a lot of times the questions that we're asking people in everyday life are not great. So for example, Allie, I might call you and say, hey, would you like to see my list of negotiation topics that I train on? What have I just done? I've asked you a yes or no question. And if I do that, what's the easiest answer for you to give me?
Usually yes. Well, depends. Sometimes you do that for salespeople, so they'll just go away. Send me the information. Right. Is that where you're going or no? Did I just fail? Did I fail your example?
No, I think that what you've said actually proves it because you would say yes to get me off the phone. You would say yes, but that was really a no.
I'm laughing. Right? Everyone listening, you've done that. You'd be like, yes, send me the info. I'll follow up.
Send me the literature.
Okay. So it's yes or no. Right.
Which is code for this is DOA, right? So if I tell somebody to send me the literature, that means it's going to arrive at my house and it's going to go into the mail pile of doom, which I don't even want to tell you how high that thing is. So instead, I teach people to ask open questions. And the biggest question, the two magic words that you should be using on every occasion is tell me. So instead of saying, Allie, would you like to see this? Allie, tell me what your company is struggling with. Tell me your needs right now. Tell me your biggest goals for the first 2 quarters of next year. Do you know that when I coach entrepreneurs on sales and business development, a lot of them are still going into new clients and showing a pitch deck. In effect, they're going in and they're talking first. Never do that. Instead, I train people how to go in and say, tell us how you're seeing the sector. Tell us your greatest needs. And it is incredible, the business generation that comes from that. But here's the bigger magic about Tell Me. It also works at home. This is a year when women have to negotiate on so many fronts. Whether it's me generating business for myself, whether it's, negotiating with my husband over the home office or talking to my daughter, tell me is the question that I've found that gets me the best results, that opens somebody up and allows us to have a real conversation.
And does this go against kind of the old methods that were being taught? Do you remember, do they still have in the airline magazines, they'd have those big brochures for these negotiating seminars? Remember the little guy in the suit? I can't remember his name now, but I'd sit there and read it, go like, wow, this is interesting. So is this now a whole different angle, like these open-ended questions and actually having a conversation? It's sad if it is, but it is, right? This is kind of new for people to understand.
It is a totally new angle. It's so new that a number of publishers wanted to purchase Ask for More because there's nothing like it out there. It used to be, this old way of negotiating, Allie, where it was kind of about holding your cards close to your vest and then springing a surprise on someone. But here's the thing. We know this. I think women know this in particular. Life is a relationship sport. In fact, if you're in business for yourself, you know that the relationship creates the deal and not the other way around. And may I say that especially in times of crisis or stress, people want to do business with folks that they have a relationship with. I don't just want you to get one handshake out of this book. I want more for you than that. I want you to create relationships of trust so that people look at you and say, Allie is my partner in my long-term success. And that is when you're going to produce the most value and do the best for yourself as well as others.
I love that. And I think it alleviates in the back of our minds sometimes when we're going into a negotiation, we're also sometimes thinking, oh gosh, I don't want to ruin our friendship, right? Or I don't want to mess up the good thing I have here. But you're kind of resetting how we approach it then, saying, no, your relationship is what's going to create this deal. Don't feel like this is a separate thing.
Yeah. And Allie, a relationship doesn't mean that I'm erasing myself or ignoring my needs. It simply means that I can hold those two things together. I can honor what I need to do business with you, and I can take your needs into account. So yes, I would not be afraid of the relationship. The relationship, in fact, is what is going to have somebody come back to you time and time again, because you've built that trust and they know that you are the first person they want to call no matter what comes their way in life.
Yeah. So you gave us the question to get started. I love the tell me. Could you walk us through navigating a negotiation effectively?
Sure. So I would be, first of all, Allie, when you think about negotiation as steering relationships, what's the most important relationship of your life? It's the one you have with yourself. And so step one of any negotiation is asking yourself some questions. And in Ask for More, I lay out a few of them that people can ask themselves in just a few minutes that are really going to help them shape that upcoming conversation. Then once you do sit down with someone else, yet again, you're leading with questions. You're starting out by asking them to tell you their perspective, their thoughts, their goals, their needs. Then later on, I actually have another question for something that comes up a lot. What if you get a no? Or what if you run into a snag? A lot of women sometimes will fear the no, or they'll shy away because they're nervous that if they get a no, it means it's the end of the conversation or they've ruined a relationship. Not true at all. If you do run into a snag, simply ask this question. What are your concerns? Somebody says, Allie, we can't do the deal at that level. What are your concerns? No, we're not going to accept this proposal. What are your concerns? In this way, you've sincerely invited them to tell you what the barrier is to the deal. And you don't know unless you're going to ask. I experienced this so many times marketing a book during a pandemic. If I could tell a personal story for a minute, going back to March 2nd, 2020, I went into New York City for a fancy lunch with my literary agents, and they looked at my calendar and they said, Alex, you're killing it. You've got so many in-person events. You're going to sell 1 million books. This is incredible.
That's
Great
their
job.
world, right?
Right.
And by the way, I miss fancy lunches. Can I say that? I really do. Sorry. Anyway.
I really do. I look back at that time and it's painful. I think about the fact that I was in public enjoying a glass of wine, people watching. It was fantastic. And at that time, I thought I knew what my spring was going to look like. And then over the next 10 days, everything evaporated. Every one of my speaking engagements. And most people came back to me and said, we're not going to do a virtual event either. So for a moment, right, I put my head down on my desk and cried. And then I remembered that I wrote a book about negotiation, and I picked up the phone and one by one, I called people and I said, what are your concerns with a virtual event? And the first person said, well, we haven't run one before and we don't have the staffer to do it. And I said, well, would it help if my team did it? Oh, yes, it would. Thanks. Okay, we can do that. Second client said, well, we're not sure if our employees would want a virtual event. And I said, well, how might we find that out? And they said, well, I suppose we could survey them. And I said, great. Turns out they all wanted the event. So one by one, I think, we showed that when you run into a snag or a hiccup, simply asking someone their concerns can be a great way to turn that negotiation around. And in the process, produce a lot of value for both people.
Yeah. When you work with clients on this, are they often surprised how simple it is in the end?
Sometimes, yes. I think people expect that negotiation success is about decision trees, or, a whole lot of complicated mathematics. And here's the thing, it's not that there's not a place for math and negotiation. There absolutely is, but you're never going to get to the math unless you get your basics right first. And the most advanced negotiators are not the people who can do the best mental math. They are the people who generate the most trust, and they bring an advanced level of awareness to the basic skills of listening and asking questions. If you master those, there's nothing you can't achieve in negotiation.
Yeah. What happens when, let's say that you're in a situation where you're in a business deal or something, and it may not be a good relationship. Like maybe you think that they're a bad actor, or they may not have the best intentions. It's not often, but sometimes we're in those situations if we're forced in a partnership with a company because of an agreement or something like that. How do you approach that when you're like, I don't really know if this is a relationship?
Good question. Okay, so the first thing I would advise people to do is before you get in the room, make sure you've done what I call taking a look in the mirror. And so here, that would mean, Allie, that I would have arrived in the room thinking about what I most need out of this relationship. And when I counsel people to look at their needs, I say, make sure you're looking at them in two buckets, the tangibles and the intangibles. And the tangibles we all know, right? The tangibles are the money, the units, the things you can touch, see, or count. But the intangibles are the values that make our lives worth living. And so if I have down there respect, acknowledgement, reciprocity, and I'm not getting that across the table, then that gives me the clarity I need to know I either need to advocate for a change, or I need to realize that this does not serve me. And so my approach would be, if I have my list of needs and this isn't working, I'm not sure about the intentions, I would be tactful but upfront and say, I'd like to raise a concern that I have. The concern I have is, and I would describe what I'm seeing. So you don't want to go in and say, you're being a jerk. You don't want to label. Instead, I describe. I might say, so I'm concerned about a pattern where I come in with a contract and we agree in principle on terms, and then at the last minute, there are major changes. And this doesn't meet my needs in the following ways. And so I'm wondering what we can do to change that.
I've never heard someone call someone on their shit so eloquently. Like, that's just beautiful. Sorry, I don't mean to derail you. I'm just in awe. Please keep going.
I've had a lot of practice calling people on their shit, right? And the thing about being a woman in business, may I say this, is that you always have to be the grown-up in the room. And that's something I take seriously. And when I engage with people on my concerns, I do it in a way where I'm modeling for them, this is what effective communication is going to look like. I'm advocating for myself. I am not being derogatory. I am describing my concerns, and I'm laying out what I need to change. And then I'm going to invite you to participate in that. And if we can't do that, then I'm going to say goodbye or take a break and let you know that when you're ready to come to the table in the following way, then I'm ready to re-engage with you.
Oh my gosh. So tell me about the landscape of negotiating. You alluded earlier that, really, I think, did I read somewhere that this was the first book on negotiating written by a woman to make a bestseller list? Something like that?
Yes. Ask for More is the first negotiation book solo authored by a woman to make the Wall Street Journal business bestseller list.
Yeah.
And if I can describe, so going back in time, I sign a deal with Simon & Schuster, and then they send me, Allie, this graphic. And they say, Alex, we wanted to show you your comparable books. These are the best-selling books in your field. And I looked at this graphic. I show this graphic to many of my audiences. 8 books, 16 authors, 1 woman in the 3rd author position on 1 book. And the books are all written by men who are significantly older than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had this moment where, you're calling me Alex, and that's what my friends and colleagues call me, Alex Carter. I made a decision to put my full name, Alexandra Carter, on the front of Ask for More because I made a deliberate decision. I wanted people to know that they were buying a negotiation book from a woman. And, writing a book, this is kind of like giving birth in two different ways. It's giving birth to the content and bringing that into the world, but it's also giving birth to yourself as the author of that book. And a powerful part of that for me was standing in my worth and my expertise as a woman and redefining what people think about when they think about expertise in negotiation.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big, I don't know. I bet that was a process for you in a way that you knew you were about to step into that space and really own your purpose, own your worth in that area.
I did. And I had, again, being honest, I had more than a moment of imposter syndrome. I have counseled so many women, senior women, brilliant women, accomplished women, wealthy women, women who are succeeding by any definition, and they still feel imposter syndrome. They still wonder, will this be the moment that people say, no, you're a fraud and we're not going to accept this? And so doing this and making the bestseller list, and now knowing that tens of thousands of people all over the world, of every gender are reading this book and using it to change their lives, it's just a reminder that when we get past our imposter syndrome, that's when we can serve. That's when we're going to reach so many people. And so if there's someone out there struggling with this and listening to this, if you're finding value in this conversation, I want you to know that the only reason you're hearing it is that I got past my imposter syndrome. And there are people out there waiting for your message, and I don't want you to make them wait any longer. I want 2021 to be the year that you too celebrate your expertise and use it to serve a lot of people.
That's a perfect segue, unplanned, but perfect. I'm going to actually circle back to something that I know you shared when you were in college. It was a moment that you felt you really found your voice. And would you mind sharing that? It's a wonderful place to leave people before we wrap up.
Sure. So I entered college being relatively shy. I was socially shy and I struggled to know how to connect with people and make friends. And so I set a huge goal for myself. I decided that I was going to get over my shyness by running for office at Georgetown as an undergrad. And so, Allie, I knocked on every door in the freshman class. And we had about, 1,500 freshmen. And so I would go floor by floor in the dorm, knock on the doors, and then go into the ladies' bathroom and cry and repeat. And at the end of that, I had met virtually every person in my class. I won a seat on the student council. And from there, I really discovered that when I believed in a message, when I had something to communicate that I knew would help and inspire other people, that's when I found my voice. And so going through that exercise is really what started me on the road to where I am today, a professor, an author, and a public speaker who speaks with confidence to people all over the world.
Oh, I love that. I just love that story when that caught my eye. I said, oh, I hope she's to share that and I think it's a great little lesson that we, when you're having trouble doing something sometimes, just set a big goal that you're kind of forced into it. It's that self-imposed discipline that gets you to that next level. And in my experience, in my own and working with just hundreds and hundreds of women entrepreneurs as well, we often need that extra structure. We need something there that's going to get our back off the wall and make us do this. And so tell us all about where to get the book, anything else we should know that you're doing. This is your you're on the soapbox now. You take it before we bring it around the bend.
Oh, great. So I get to model how to ask for more right here. Fantastic. I love it. So ask for more, 10 questions to negotiate anything, can be purchased anywhere books are sold online. So Bookshop is a great place that supports indie bookstores. There's Amazon, Barnes & Noble. I would also love if people would connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram. And I also am releasing a series of digital courses on how to be your own ultimate self-advocate. And you can find information about that on my website, which is alexcarterasks.com. So I would love to be your partner wherever you are in your long-term success. And I hope you'll connect with me to do that.
Fantastic. So Alex, as we wrap up, I'd love you to share 3 great pieces of advice with all the women listening.
Sure. The first piece of advice is land the plane. What does land the plane mean? It means that when you ask your great question, when you ask for what you're worth, when you make that proposal, you make it and then you close your mouth. Too often we will, out of fear, just eat up the silence with our words and bid against ourselves. Don't do that. Make your proposal and land the plane. That's number 1. Number 2 is negotiate for other people as well as yourself. One powerful strategy that I'm writing about right now is called amplification. What does it mean? It means that when you're in scenarios with other women, when they give an idea or they share a contribution, amplify that, speak their name, and give them credit. And I find this is something that we can do as women to really increase our power overall and make sure that other women are rising as we rise. It's incredibly powerful. Somebody amplified me, Allie, many years ago, and that's how I got to where I am today. So amplify others is number 2. Number 3 is really personal. Number 3 is very 2020 related, and it's that resilience doesn't have to look pretty. In fact, resilience can look really messy. It's not about, having no fear or, just plowing ahead. It's about getting back up when you've been knocked down. And I experienced this when, on the day that Ask for More came out, May 5th, I got a call from my dad's hospice facility. My father is terminally ill, and they told us that he had COVID, and they didn't expect him to live more than 24 hours. And when I tell you that I curled up in a ball and I thought, I don't know how I'm going to do this. My book is out today. It was a mess. But I got up every day and said, I'm just going to do one thing to move forward. I'm going to do one thing to support myself or one thing to support my family or this book today. And I got through it, and miraculously, so did my dad. And so it's just given me new appreciation for, even if it feels, awful on the inside, if you're getting back up, you are resilient. And you have that power to do that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Alex, everyone needs this book. I just think it's, we've seen some things come and go, but this is one that's going to be one of those perennial bestsellers over the years. I have no doubt, because I haven't seen anything like it. So congratulations on everything you've done. We hope to see you in person at some point. That would be great.
I'd love it. And preferably for that lunch in public.
Let's have a fancy New York lunch.
It's a date.
But in the publishing world, fancy lunches, miss that stuff. Meanwhile, I'm going to go find something in my fridge and forage some lunch. So Alex, thanks for joining us. Everyone pick up, ask for more, and thanks. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Glambition Radio. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you subscribe so you automatically get my new shows every week. Also, I'd love if you left us a review so more women like you can discover us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Pandora, and other major platforms. And I'd love to hear from you personally. Come join the conversation on social. Instagram is my happy place lately, and that's Allie Brown Official, but you can find links to my other platforms at alliebrown.com. Glambition Radio is the elevated conversation for women leaders, and I'm honored you tuned in.